Good morning, Sycamore Creek family, and happy Sunday. This is Tiffany Norday, your worship producer at Sycamore Creek. I'm standing in for Pastor Tom while he's out. And I have a co-host, our guest co-host here, Dr. Julia Williams, with us. We kind of go way back. We were college roommates, friends. So go Broncos. We went to Western Michigan University. I know that there's we have some Broncos in the audience. Hey, go Broncos. So now she is Dr. Julia Williams. She's a licensed counselor. So today we are in our second week of What Would Jesus Say? Specifically talking about mental health. So we have Jana Opperly and also Rebecca Fenton leading us in this topic. And in the studio, we have Dr. Julia Williams to add to the discussion. So Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you mentioned, I am a clinical mental health counselor. I've worked in the psychiatric hospitalization, short-term psychiatric residential, and now I am the clinical director working in private practice. So it's been an extensive history of working in mental health.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you. So we also have in the studio with us the player music and also DJ Juice with us that is going to bring some beats that is also related to mental health as well. So not only is counseling therapeutic, but music is therapeutic as well. So as we have the player music here. He was here with us once before, and we got him back again because we loved his work. And so while you listen to him, his first song is called Midnight. Think about this question: what keeps you up late at night? Put it in the chat. Discuss if you're in the studio with us. And here we go.
So when I was writing this song, it was about like the whole project that this came from. It was pretty much the start of quarantine. So I was feeling down. I was feeling like I was like by myself. I was in my room a lot. I was just writing lyrics, and like a lot of this stuff was just me reflecting on my past, and just about how everything in my life that is right now just like came about, and it allowed me to reflect a little bit more. But it was also pretty depressing. It was a quarantine. So yeah, get it done. Midnight grinding in my mind and all my lyrics spill. I'm just talking about my life and all my cheaping thrills. Gotta get a bag, gotta make it big, gotta make mama proud. Put my lyrics on my song and then I sing it loud. Is it the best way? All my songs are like an essay. Heart and soul on the track for some tiny goals. Couple racks and a tiny total. What do I make music for? Is it for love and adoration? Is it for feeling feelings on the track and hoping that somebody is relating? Is it because I heard a Tech 9 song and decided I would make it? Is it because I thought that I would money it help me in fixing my mistakes? Yeah, that is a question that I cannot answer. Don't overdo it, just live in the moment, cause overthinking is a cancer. Do you feel me? Cause I do not feel myself. I've been pulling these all-nighters, messing with my mental health. Yes, I know, but it's all the time I get to be alone. Even though all it does is put a damper on my soul, yeah. Shout out DJ Juice, man. Producing everything. Yeah. One guy, I got too many faces. People hating, I don't know that it faze me. Overthinking everything that I'm working on changing. I'm already on the vibe. You late from 5 to 8. I take a dive to the matrix, overriding all the safety precautions. I don't know how to lead often. I cannot handle the heat. I don't know what I would do if a whole bunch of people were looking up to me. I don't know, I gotta get better. Making me feel like I'm lesser. I cannot handle the pressure. Know that I gotta get better. I know it's just the thing I learned along the way. Secrets locked behind adulthood that I cannot learn today. I'm only 18, but I'm feeling like I'm 21, cause life is hitting me with savage weed to see who I become. But I'll make sure that I'll be greater than I was. If y'all rocking with me, hope that I can show you love. Cut this rapper label fitting perfect like a glove. I hope you following with me on my road just to a dub, yeah.
All right. Very nice.
Thank you, the player music. I hope you guys enjoyed that as you were answering the question, what keeps you up late at night? Julie, what keeps you up?
Responsibilities. I mean, who doesn't get it, right? There's so many responsibilities that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. Definitely keep that mind turning.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm an entrepreneur, and that constantly keeps me up late at night. Entrepreneur, mom of 3 girls.
My goodness.
Wife. Yeah, so my mind is constantly turning. Yeah, what about you, Gretchen?
You know,
and
lately I have been real tired, probably because I'm also a mom and I have a lot of responsibilities. So I've been like falling asleep really quickly, but I mean, it's like usually like, oh, I forgot to do something today, but I don't know what it is and I can't figure it out. So like I'm like rolling this thing in my head, or I have something to do tomorrow that's really big and I'm afraid I'm going to forget part of it, or things like that. And then I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just feel this like weird sense of dread that I can't explain. And I'm like, what is happening? Why am I so upset right now? I don't know, but I can't stop it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, what about you, Kristen?
Well, lately I've been getting up early, so I haven't had that problem. But when I do, it's usually because I can't turn my mind off, or worries, things like that, or sometimes that weird sense of dread.
Yes.
I think that's pretty common.
What are some people saying in the chat?
On Facebook, it's a lot of things like Sarah said the pandemic. I think a lot of us can definitely relate to that. Things related to finances, family planning, worries about the kiddos.
Oh, yeah.
I think I can all relate.
I think I can relate to all of those.
Yeah, so much. Well, as you're listening, let me show you some ways to connect with us. We definitely want you to like, share, and subscribe this message. Share it out on Facebook, YouTube. Follow us. If this is your first time, please fill out the connection card so that you can connect with us. And if you fill out this connection card, you'll get a free book. It's called You'll Get Through This by Max Lucado, and Dr. Julia is holding that book up right there. And so you can follow us. And if you're in your car, at home, on the couch, or here in the studio, take a selfie. You know, show us where you're at. I know some people are out trying to get that last-minute vacation before school starts again. And hashtag SCCMI. This is our selfie of the week from last week from John Schultz. So he's our winner for a selfie of the week. You see he had baseball, what was that, a poster behind his TV?
I think it's like a sticker that goes on the wall, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to know what player that is, because I love the Tigers.
So we're going to go back to hearing the player music. He has another song for us. It kind of ties to what we just got done discussing about responsibilities. It's called Control. I think everybody wants that desire of control, so let's listen to the player music as he kicks off our service.
Yeah, so a lot of where this song came from, I think I wrote it back when I really had first started. So I was like 15. I might have been 16 at the time. I'm not sure. But it was basically about like having, even though like it wasn't nearly at the level that it is now or will be in the future, I still had a lot of responsibilities. I was participating in a lot of things. And then it just seemed like a lot of stuff was happening outside of the range of control that I had over these things, because like there's a lot of variables to life and everything like that. So, and it's one of the few songs that I wrote like early when I started that I can still like relate to, and I can still like, even though like I can look back and like see how I was feeling at the time, it's one of those times where I can still relate to it today and still kind of like grasp what I was feeling at that time and apply it to life today. This one also produced by DJ Juice, by the way. Just want to let y'all know that. Yeah. Yeah, hey. I just want control, not a power trip, just some simple things. Emotions going crazy, don't know what the day brings. Thoughts of negativity, I hate it when they sing. I don't even want them around, but the sound always rings. I just want control, just a little more control. Not even a lot, just a little more to hold. Trying to keep my sanity, just trying to hold on. If I cannot keep it, God can come and take my soul, yeah. All the pain I'm feeling, that is killing me in increments. Old news, so true, don't know how to feel with it. Trying to figure out a situation where I benefit. It's getting bleak, I'm feeling weak, it's about to be the end of it. Looking like the demons winning round after round. Putting weight up on my shoulders, stacking pound after pound. Hide me lost, never down, till I'm lost, never found. It's fading, it's eluding me, I mess around and drown in the darkness. Run up on me and my heart skips, I just been feeling the bottomless. Pit of depression, a lot of BS, and I hate when they stressing the life I live. Filled with it, I'm usually regular, chill with it. This time I just took a step back, I know I ain't feeling this. I feel like I'm crazy, I feel like I go insane. Something in my head is trying to profit off my pain. I gotta give some time to figure it out. How do I get to control? Gotta get deep in my mind real quick, I know they coming for the soul. Not a power trip, just some simple things. Emotions going crazy, don't know what the day brings. Thoughts of negativity, I hate it when they sing. I don't even want them around, but the sound always rings. I just want control, just a little more control. Not even a lot, just a little more to hold. Trying to keep my sanity, just trying to hold on. If I can't achieve it, God can come and take my soul, yeah.
That was awesome.
Fire.
Yes, I love those bars. I mean, who wouldn't want, we all have that natural desire to have some sense of control, just kind of like what the player music said, not a power trip, but just some kind of sense of foundation, feeling your feet planted on the ground so you can have some kind of bearing. And the pandemic has definitely put everybody in the same boat with that. So thank you again, the player music, for that awesome. Let's give them a hand clap for that. I love how this church is so creative. We bring in different art forms to speak to a topic. And so we're going to go, and today's message starts with this.
The most critical issue we're facing today is mental health.
I believe this is the most important issue because people are suffering, and they're suffering in silence.
Older generations don't understand what goes on in their kids' heads and what could possibly be hurting them.
It's stigmatized and it's not well understood.
The pressures of social media and the isolation that comes with that.
I think the struggle to be perfect and the struggle to do everything well and succeed.
I think there's a lot of pressure, especially from where we live and the schools that we go to do the best you can and be the best that you can be, which is great, but a lot of times it piles up and students can't handle all of that.
Older generations tend to see mental health as just this stigma that teenagers and millennials have kind of come up with.
The most critical issue we're facing today is mental health.
The most critical issue is mental health.
Mental health. Mental health.
Mental health.
Mental health.
Mental health.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Fitton, and I'm a licensed professional counselor.
Hi, I'm Jana Opperly, and I am a faculty member in the College of Education at MSU. I'm also a licensed psychologist. So we wanted to give you a heads up about our message for today. So here's our plan for today's message. First, we're going to cover some of the goofy things that we've heard during our work as mental health professionals. Then we'll talk about why are we talking about mental health, and specifically, why are we talking about mental health here in church? Then we'll transition to what Jesus would say. And spoiler alert, Jesus would say that we have to take care of ourselves and that we have to take care of one another.
As we've mentioned, we're both mental health workers. We wanted to start with some of the things that we've heard people say about mental health. One of the things that I often hear people say is that successful people don't have mental health difficulties or problems. So doctors or people who own businesses or pastors for that matter, or psychologists, they don't have any mental health difficulties ever.
Another goofy thing we've heard is that all mental illness is spiritual illness. And if you just pray enough, you won't experience mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I hear that one. I hear that one a lot. Another one that I hear a lot often is it's really selfish to take care of your mind and your body.
One that comes up for me is mental illness. That's a sign of weakness.
Mm-hmm. Kind of along with that is that seeking help is also a sign of weakness. So often even by the time I see people in my office, they have been fighting through a lot of these things that they think about mental health just to even walk through the door to sit and to talk about some of these things.
Yes, so during our message, we want you to keep listening because we'll address these statements and these ideas during our time together. So we'd like to throw you a discussion question. Have you heard any of these statements? Where have you seen these ideas show up?
So have you heard any of these goofy statements that Jana and Rebecca stated in that first segment? Dr. Julia, I know you see a lot of people. Have you heard any of those responses?
Fortunately, unfortunately, I have heard all of those in the practice that I have, where people come in, they know they need mental health services, and yet they come in with stigma, self-judgment that can kind of hinder the process. So I address it right up front.
That's good.
That is good, yeah.
I'm glad you do that because, I've heard quite a few of those, especially the spiritual, it's a spiritual illness or the kind of shame factor that comes with it if you try to get help.
That's too bad.
Yeah, and I think, I have a therapist, and I think one thing I started doing, because I know we all have people who follow us. Someone's always watching your journey, and so I think one thing since the pandemic, that was something that I did for myself, was to get a therapist that I've been with for a year, and I think that's one of the best things I did for myself.
Absolutely.
Was to do that. And that was something I could do privately in my own home, thanks to teledoc, technology and stuff like that. And she did the same thing too, address those stigmas up front to kind of lower those walls so that conversation can begin and just mental health could, do its part.
One of the things that I realize is that even though a person can have mental health issues, that their own stigma probably trumps everybody else's. A lot of the times it's because you're with you 100% of the time, and those thoughts can kind of ruminate.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking, some of these I've not actually heard because I'm a millennial, and a lot of millennials are like, yeah, let's take care of our mental health, which is great. But I look back and I think, when I was in high school, I probably was depressed, and I didn't know it, and I didn't know what was happening, so I didn't talk about it, because that was a time when we didn't really talk about things. Right. And so it wasn't that somebody told me not to talk about it. I just didn't. It's ingrained in us,
Yeah, it was you could feel the culture around you.
Yeah.
Didn't breathe the ability to have those open discussions.
A lot of the times it's the unspoken things that come up, and you kind of feel those impressions, even though they're not spoken.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you can still feel that judgment.
Cool. Yeah. So let's go back to the message and see what Jana and Rebecca have to say.
So you might be wondering, why is talking about mental health so important?
We'd like to start with some facts and statistics for you. So, by the time they reach midlife, 80% of Americans will have struggled with a mental health disorder. So, depression or anxiety or post-traumatic stress disorder or bipolar disorder, 80%.
That's a lot of people. Yeah. And in a given year, 19% of us will struggle with clinically significant anxiety, 7% will struggle with depression, 4% with post-traumatic stress disorder, and 3% with bipolar disorder.
Throughout this series, we've been talking about folks from the Gen Z generation. So in a recent study by the American Psychological Association called Stress in America, Gen Z, we learned that Gen Z is more stressed than any other generation before. So specifically, since 2009, the rate of 12 to 17-year-olds and 18 to 25-year-olds reporting a major depressive episode has risen from 8% to 13% of our 12 to 25-year-olds. Further, 1 in 10 young people has seriously considered suicide in the past year.
I just want to pause for a minute and reflect on those numbers, because those numbers are really high. 1 out of 10 young people would seriously consider suicide. That's 10% of people, and they're wild numbers even for us being in this profession. And so we are really glad that we are talking about this together today. It's super important.
So why should we talk about this now?
Gen Zs and Millennials rate this issue as one of the most important issues of their time. And we're going to show a short video right now where some of them are talking about why this is so important to them.
My name is Stephen Ball. I'm 35. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a nephew. I'm single, and I'm a lawyer. I think mental health is an important issue because I don't think baby boomers understand it as well. I don't think they had opportunity to. Access to mental health was different back then. The field itself was different. And I think as a result, many baby boomers grew up with stigmas and with a flawed understanding of how the mental health community can help them live their best life today.
My name is Mandy Anaya. I am a millennial. I am a professor within a PsyD program. That's a clinical psychology program. So I'm very much concerned about mental health. There is this thought that if you have a physical ailment, then obviously you go to the doctor. But if you have a mental ailment, then it's almost like a personality defect that you need to get over it. Anxiety levels are going up in terms of the additional pressures that we're putting on our younger generations and on our kids.
I'm Michael. I'm 36. I'm a millennial. I'm a son, a brother, a husband, a dad, an uncle. When I found a therapist and began going to therapy and getting counseling, as I shared that with some members of my family, some members of older generations, they didn't really know how to take it. Some thought of it as a sign of weakness, that I wasn't able to handle things on my own. At the same time, I joined a gym and started working out, and one of the statements was, "Well, good for you. I'm glad you're at the gym. I'm glad you're working out. I'm glad that's being the thing that's helping you." And so I think oftentimes the older generations maybe don't understand that we need to do things a little differently to be able to take care of ourselves.
Gen Zs and Millennials are more open to talking about mental health than any previous generation.
We also wonder if technology is accelerating the curve. So in the past 10 to 15 years, social media use has exploded. So in 2008, there were a few million people who were part of Facebook, and now there are 2 billion people who are part of Facebook. And that's not even including some of those other platforms like YouTube or TikTok or WhatsApp or Instagram. Mm-hmm. We also know from a study of the members of the Gen Z generation that after spending time on social media, 20% of those folks felt worse after viewing social media than before. So this study didn't address those reasons, but we can speculate a little bit. And some of the reasons that we think that might be are that we really carefully construct our social media posts. So you see the best photo out of the 30 we took as a family. You don't see the ones where my kids are screaming and where I have crazy eyes and where none of us are looking at one another.
Yeah. I never post the things of when I just lost it with my children, or like what my house looks like after, a long weekend or something like that. I don't post that. Do you, Jana?
No, I don't post the dirty dishes after the meal, or my kids rolling their eyes at me, or me yelling. No, none of that. All of that gets edited out. So when you're looking at social media, you're only seeing those really pretty, shiny, potentially artificial moments. So another theory that we have about why people feel worse after viewing social media is that we use social media to medicate ourselves. So if we're feeling a little bit bored, we might go on it, or angry, or lonely, or overwhelmed. So we're using social media to meet these needs, but that's not the way it was designed, and ultimately, it's not particularly satisfying for meeting those real needs.
Right.
So let's transition to, why are we talking about this in church? Or what would Jesus say about mental health?
Yeah. Why are we talking about this in church, right? Like, I'd have these conversations with my kids at home about social media, but in church, why is this important? Well, it's important because mental health and mental health difficulties is not a new thing at all. There are plenty of examples in the Bible of depression or thoughts of self-harm or anxiety. Both Moses and Elijah prayed to God to die. They were so distraught they wanted to die. We see an example of King Saul, and I haven't done an assessment on King Saul, but sometimes there's a question of, like, does he maybe have bipolar disorder? Like, what's going on? Like, why has he have so many kinds of ups and downs? We see Abraham being so anxious when he goes into Egypt, that he lies and he tells everybody that his wife is actually his sister. His anxiety was so prevalent for him. If we read Job or we read Lamentations, we just see pain and difficulty and sadness in a lot of the different writers of Lamentations. And we even just see Jesus struggling on the cross, and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he is dealing with such despair and difficulty. I mean, obviously a really dark moment. But we see that mental health, examples of different feelings and thoughts and experiences happening all throughout Scripture. So these things are not new. We just don't always read the Bible with that in mind. And so the discussion question I would love for you to consider at home is, where have you seen people struggling with mental health issues, difficulties in the Bible? Have you ever taken time to read the Bible, like, with that thought in mind?
So as you're thinking of that question, where do you see people struggling with mental health in the Bible? You could go ahead and type those answers in the chat or discuss it here in the audience. I'm going to tag on. We have some Gen Zs in the room. Those statistics that Jana and Rebecca went through, I can't just pass by that. That's like startling statistics. And so I wanted to get their opinion we have the player of music and DJ Juice here. As Gen Zs, those statistics, when you hear those, how is that in your generation? Are those stats like something that is like really prevalent? How do you guys talk about mental health? I know that we hear how you've wonderfully articulated it through your ministry of rapping. Just want to get your thoughts.
When I see those numbers, just based off the time that we're in, I'm not gonna like. It's definitely shocked me, but it's not like necessarily surprising, especially with the way that we deal with our mental health. A lot of the culture is, making jokes about it and laughing about it, and that's not in a way to say that it's not important, but just in a way that's how a lot of people in our generation cope. Myself included, to an extent, that's how we cope with our mental health and like try to make it, feel better when the situation is kind of bleak.
Like, it's fine, everything's fine.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like lightening up the situation.
Yeah, like either it goes two lanes, either lightening up the situation with the joke, or like just like, I don't want to say like dark humor because it doesn't like, but it's kind of like that, but it's like not exactly that. But I think that has also that kind of culture where it's like giving it like a lighter like covering or outline is kind of helping people like kind of come out about their mental health and like express it more. And I think that's why these numbers are getting so high. Of course I know the amount of people have gone up dealing with mental struggles, but I think it's mainly the amount of people who are expressing it, and I think that's a good thing.
Gotcha. DJ Juice?
I'd say that through personal experience, I'd say those numbers are pretty accurate. Most people I get close enough to in my age group that would be considered Gen Z, they experience these things. They get depressive thoughts, they get suicidal thoughts, they deal with all of these things we talk about. And I think most people do, but like Anthony said, the culture's changed and now it's more acceptable to talk about it.
Yeah.
But the joke thing, I don't know why, but our generation loves self-deprecating humor. That's just, it takes all of these things that we all experience and we all deal with, and they make it normalized and they make it seem like it's just part of life. You don't really got to deal with it. It's just something we all go through. And I don't like that.
Right. Double-edged sword, for sure.
Yeah. So as we think of these questions, relating today's time to biblical times, back to this question, where do you see mental health being played out in the Bible? Julia?
Well, when I start off each session, I do a mental status check, and I would think that if we experience what Jesus did, flipping tables and whipping people out, that most people would probably say that was emotional dysregulation, right? Granted, he had his reasons for doing what he did, but looking at the behavior itself, also Judas.
Oh, yeah.
He completed suicide, right?
He did.
The guilt, the weight of the guilt weighed on him, and mental anguish. Also, there is cutting in the Bible, self-harm. And I know that it was attached to possession, but we see self-harm is so prevalent in today's society and the way people are choosing to deal with emotional pain through physical expression.
Yeah.
So I preached 2 different messages on Elijah, like at least a year apart, which is crazy. And Elijah definitely experienced mental health issues. He was running away because they wanted to kill him, and he was like so depressed that he just had to like lay down under a bush and go to sleep. So I think there's a lot of places that it's in the Bible. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. One that comes to mind, and somebody mentioned on Facebook, was Hagar, and especially the moments when she was banished with her son in the desert, and she felt so hopeless and didn't want to watch him die that she left him and kind of sat somewhere else. Spoiler alert, they didn't die. But another comment, Sarah Arthur said, "We're called to love the Lord our God with all our minds, and I'm realizing this includes taking care of our mental health." I thought that was a really good point to make, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back into the message and see how Jana and Rebecca takes us further into this discussion.
So getting back to why we're talking about this in church, we know from reading the Bible that Jesus cares deeply about mental health. We know that Jesus sought out people who were broken and messed up and hurting, and that he had deep compassion for them and brought them healing. So hurting people are so dear to God's heart. So for instance, in the New Testament, we have the story of the man who was paralyzed, and his friends were so desperate to help him that they broke through the roof. Some of our kids from Kids Creek might remember the story of his friends breaking through the roof and lowering their friend down through the ceiling. And at that point, Jesus, instead of being so angry that the place where he was had been invaded and that the structure had been destroyed, he said, "Your faith has made you well." We also have stories about Mary Magdalene. So we know that she was experiencing some significant distress, and the biblical times they labeled it as demon possession. The Bible tells us that she had 7 demons inhabiting her. And from our mental health lens, we might have a different explanation. I'm not sure. It could be that she was a person experiencing schizophrenia or another disorder, but it also could be demon possession. But we know that Jesus loved Mary Magdalene as one of his closest followers, and she became one of his leading disciples. So rather than Jesus shying away from her because she was someone who struggled, he healed her and then made her one of the leaders of the early church. So Jesus tells us, he tells Mary and he tells us and other people who struggle, you matter to me. You matter to God. You're loved. Come and follow me.
Yeah. That's one of the things, even as the examples I was talking about earlier, like Moses and Elijah, like some of these people are like heroes of the faith, you know, and it's just a really good reminder that God, even if we've struggled, like that doesn't mean that you're not really important to God and that you can do amazing things. And Jesus still heals today. We always need a relationship with Jesus and love from God. And sometimes we need medication or therapy or friends. For example, if you had a pain in your mouth, like you would go to your dentist. Some of you might take a little longer than others, but you would go to the dentist and say, I have this pain in my tooth. What do I need to do? And it could be a cavity. It could be you need a root canal. Like you wouldn't want to live with that kind of pain. But so often we live with mental health pain and difficulty without really addressing and figuring out what do we need to do to move through this. Jesus' story didn't end at the cross when he was feeling desperate and alone. And our story doesn't need to end in the midst of the struggle of mental illness or sadness, grief, or heartache. These things don't get the final word in our life. God works through people who come alongside us and carry us. God also works through the Holy Spirit, who is our comforter and can console us at times. He promises that he will bring good things from the awful things. In fact, that's like one of my favorite parts of being a therapist is working with people and helping us understand that sometimes the most painful things that we go through actually really teach us a lot about who we are or teach us a lot about who God is. It's just so hard and challenging in the midst of that to know those things, right? I mean, it takes time and it can take work to work through and understand these things. And God promises that the worst thing is not the last thing.
We know that Jesus doesn't cause mental illness, but Jesus can work through mental illness. And we know that because painful experiences are just part of being human. And I think about that as I think about that 80% statistic, that 80% of us will experience a mental health event by the time we reach midlife. So if you're watching at home, chances are good that someone sitting in the room with you or that someone you love will experience a mental health difference by the time they're in midlife.
Yeah.
So, what does Jesus tell us? Jesus wants us to take care of ourselves and one another. And we're going to use a funny churchy word to talk about that. So our word is stewardship. And when we say stewardship, we mean supervising or taking care of something. So stewardship is the word that we want you to think about as you're thinking about what Jesus would say to us right now. So as we think about stewardship, we think about stewardship in 3 domains or 3 areas. And those 3 areas are stewardship of our minds, stewardship of our bodies, and stewardship of our communities. So the first piece we wanted to address is stewardship of our minds. And we think about that in 3 ways. We think about stewardship of our mind in terms of our relationships, in terms of seeking mental health support, and in terms of our faith or our religious practices. So first we wanted to address those meaningful in-person relationships. And for me, the best illustration of this is the difference between a Facebook friend and a real friend. And I define a real friend as a person that you can really take the mask off with, and a person with whom you can be real and vulnerable and ugly. You can reveal like the uglier parts of you and know that that person will still love and respect you. Another piece of stewardship of our minds is seeking mental health support. So Rebecca and I are both mental health professionals, and we've seen so many examples of individuals and families really turn a corner in their relationships and in their interactions as a result of that mental health support. So we've seen families learn to get along with more harmony. We've seen kids start to relate to their parents in healthier ways. You do a lot of work with couples, and you see couples whose whole ways of interacting are completely changed as a result of your work.
Yeah. Can you tell people a little bit about just even that piece of, as we're talking about stewardship of our minds, right? Like the cognitive behavioral therapy that can be so helpful for people?
Absolutely. So cognitive behavior therapy looks at people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And we know as mental health professionals that when you change people's thoughts, you can change the way they see the world and the way they interact with one another. So one way to think about it might be looking at the tapes that are playing in your mind. So I use the word tapes because I'm an older person, but our young people might think about changing their playlist. So changing what they're hearing on their phone or changing what they're hearing through their AirPods. So one way to think about cognitive behavior therapy is thinking about changing the playlist in your mind. So when that playlist is negative and it's harsh and you're saying mean things to yourself, like, I can't believe you did that, you always do that, why are you not good enough, nothing you ever do is good enough. When we see people having that playlist, we know that they just feel rotten and miserable. And mental health professionals like Rebecca and I can help you to change some of those tapes, to change your playlist so that you aren't feeling those negative feelings all the time.
Because we have we have thousands of thoughts in a day. And so if they're really negative, our mind is going to be wreaking some havoc on how we're doing. So yeah, this is all a part of stewarding our minds.
We also know that our feelings are really important. Would you mind just giving us a brief overview of the work you do with emotion-focused therapy?
Yeah. I help people really understand a bit more about how they're feeling about a situation, a circumstance, or what in a dynamic in a relationship, what kinds of feelings are getting churned up. Because like you were saying, our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors are all linked. And so I really help people understand what is going on for them on that feeling level as well, and help them really kind of work through, or even just a label. Labeling it is an incredibly helpful piece as we practice better mental health.
So when we think about stewardship of our minds, the third piece of that are our faith or our religious practices.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, in terms of our thought life, some of our faith and religious practices can be really helpful in terms of the way we think, like emphasizing gratitude, really kind of bringing your mind to the things that you are grateful for, having a prayer life, being able to pray for other people, maybe asking God for some of these things in our life to be comforted in moments of difficulty. Small groups can be another way of, sometimes we do need that friendships you were talking about, other people being able to say, hey, wait a minute, I think you're thinking about this in maybe a way that you sound kind of critical of yourself, like having meaningful relationships where people can say those kinds of things to us. We know that young people have actually left the church in droves. Young people oftentimes call themselves spiritual but not religious. And from Psychology Today, some research shows that actually having higher rates of religiosity are oftentimes correlated with lower rates of depression and anxiety, substance use, suicidal behavior, and just overall well-being. And so we really feel like people are missing out. There's some really wonderful things that a healthy faith community can give to you in terms of your mental health and your well-being. The next piece of stewardship, with our fancy word, is stewarding our bodies. Can you tell us a little bit about one of the practices that's helpful with that, Jana?
Absolutely. So we know that our minds and our bodies are intimately connected. And one piece that really stands out when we think about stewardship and stewardship of our bodies is this idea of sleep. And it's such a basic concept, but I don't think that we can overestimate how important sleep is for our mental and physical well-being. So we know that when we sleep, our bodies are purging toxins. We know that when we're sleeping, our minds are turning those short-term memories into long-term memories. We know that when people don't sleep well, they just don't feel well. And we're both nodding because I think that we've experienced that, and we've seen that so often and for me, the kids and families, and you, the people with whom you work. So one small tip related to that is to think critically about your social media use right before bed. So we know that the blue light from technology really interferes with our wake-sleep cycles. And so one small piece of advice that we give to our clients is that they really avoid technology, and specifically social media, before bed. We say an hour before bed. And this is me noting how countercultural that is and how hard it is to do that.
Yeah, most people have their devices right by their bed. I know I do too, right? And yet actually right before we go to bed and when we wake up is some of our most vulnerable time of the day. And so taking care of our bodies certainly involves having really good sleep habits. Also, exercise and proper diet and nutrition is a really important part of taking care of this body that God gave us. When we're not feeling well physically, we can start to have, like we said, it's so tied together, we can start to, that builds and builds on itself. Another piece about taking care of our bodies also may include medication. And we want to acknowledge that many people might feel reluctant or hesitant about considering medication for mental health. But Jana and I were talking about this, and it's just very interesting. There's a lot of stigma around mental health and taking medication for mental health purposes. But I think a lot of us would consider taking medication for maybe a headache, or like if we had diabetes, we would take insulin because we would recognize like our body's not producing the insulin that we need to be functioning well. And so I just want to encourage people to think complexly about mental health and medication as well, because sometimes it is just really life-changing to be able to experience what is it like to feel like, wow, my thoughts can slow down. What is it like to feel like I can get through the day without feeling such intense anxiety? And so sometimes medication is also just a part of taking care of our bodies, this vessel that God gave us on this earth. The other piece of stewardship is really our community, that Jesus really wants us to take care of each other. And I know we've kind of hit on that a little bit already, but what would it look like if we were doing this well? When we love others, we're really doing the work of God. And I do want to thank the Gen Zs and the Millennials for really being so open about mental health. I think this is a really necessary conversation. And I think it's pushing a lot of us to be more open, more vulnerable with people about what's going on, with trusted friends, with small group members. I think these are really important, necessary kind of shifts that will really help us operate better. We can also then, we have the opportunity in community to practice compassion for people. When other people are sharing struggles with us, I want to encourage us to be non-judgmental, bearing each other's burdens, like carrying people when they're struggling. That is this is so close to Jesus's heart that I think this is a big part of how we can be supportive around mental health for other people, especially if you haven't struggled with anxiety or depression yourself and somebody talks to you about that. I just want to really encourage you to be a good listener. I know we talked about that in last week's sermon too.
Another piece of stewardship of our community is pointing one another towards help. Like Rebecca said, when we have those close relationships, that gives us the opportunity to really support each other, and we can support each other through those one-on-one relationships, but also in encouraging one another to seek professional assistance if necessary. And I think for so many years there's been this stigma in the church against admitting that we're struggling and against visiting mental health professionals. But I think you and I both see our professions as gifts from God and as tools that God can use to help bring healing to God's people. So we see our tools as mental health professionals as being really the work of God in bringing healing and restoration to the relationships in the people with whom we work. So one final piece of that stewardship of our community is thinking about really promoting that mental and physical well-being in one another. So maybe that looks like a small group that goes walking, or maybe that looks like a small group of people who are committed to changing their eating habits. We know that it's really hard to change those habits. So much of the work we do is helping people to change habits that haven't been so helpful for them in the past. And so we think that we can do this work well in our faith communities when we band together to make these changes. So we have a discussion question for you. Our discussion question is, which strategies from stewardship of the mind, stewardship of the body, and stewardship of the community have helped you to stay healthy?
So which strategies from stewardship of the mind, the body, and community have helped you stay healthy? I'm going to start out with the question, answering the question for myself. I would have to say all three. I know I need all three. I'm a big community, family type person. And so having friends, and I think the pandemic kind of showed that everybody needs a sense of community, whether it's small or big. And we've had I know me and my husband had a little, we call it the quarantine crew. It's a small group of friends that we kind of just stayed together during this quarantine period.
We called it in the bubble. They're in my bubble.
Yours is the bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that has definitely helped us stay, kind of sane.
Oh, totally.
More or less. And as far as the mind, I was like, I mentioned it before that, I thought one of the best things I did for myself was get a therapist. So that's something I did for myself. And the body, one of my businesses that I have is called Dancing with the Nordays, where we dance, and we have a hashtag called Exercise by Accident. And it's to encourage adults to dance to relieve stress, because we're still working. So it's an evening class, come out and have fun, let your hair down, do something different outside the box. Because I've understand I have some sorority sisters that are physicians, and they told me the more you exercise and get your heart pumping, doing any kind of activity, that helps to release, toxins. Kind of like what Jana and Rebecca were talking about, the different ways to release those negative, feelings, toxins, stress in your body. So, Dr. Julia, what would you say to this question, or how do you lead clients through this?
So I'll first start with myself. I am an introvert. I'm a deep thinker. And one of the things that I've realized is that feelings don't like to be ignored. And when you ignore them, they will come back for you very aggressively sometimes.
That's good.
So what I like to do is acknowledge how I'm feeling. I will stop what I'm doing to acknowledge how I'm feeling and to treat myself with respect in that way. And I treat my clients very much the same. If I hear them judging themselves, like, hold on, wait a minute, we need to examine what that's about, so they can understand that as much compassion as you expect from others is just that important to give it to yourself.
Yeah.
And to be present and show up for yourself and not to push away those things. You would never do that to a friend if they come to you with something that is important to them, to say, yeah, no, I don't want to talk about that. So how could that possibly be appropriate to do it for yourself, or to do it in your own thinking?
I loved when they talked in the section about stewardship of the community, about pointing others to help. We have many mental health professionals in our church, not just Jana and Rebecca. And a few years ago, I was looking for a counselor, and so I emailed like all of them in one email, and I was like, who do you recommend? Because obviously it would be kind of weird to go see somebody that's like your friend. That's not a great plan. And they all, first of all, they all said, how brave for you to ask for help, and then they all gave me recommendations, and that is how I found the counselor that I'm seeing today. So I just thought that was really helpful, because I'm sure, Julia, you know way more people that people could see than what I know. I know my one counselor, and I know the counselors here at church. That's about it. Which, by the way, we have a counselor that works out of our building. Well, actually, she does mostly online, I think, now, Damaris Garcia. But if anybody is wanting to try to get hooked up with her, they can email her at counselor@sycamorecreekchurch.org, and Kristen will put that in the comments.
Awesome. Well, let's return back to the message and see what Jana and Rebecca have to say.
Remember those goofy statements from the beginning of our message that successful people don't have mental illness, and that mental illness always equals spiritual illness, or that self-care is selfishness? What were some of the others? Oh, seeking help is weakness. They're all false. The real statements about faith and mental health are so much more complicated, and Jana and I could talk for a long time about these things, but we won't. Those are all false, and we really want to promote a community at Sycamore Creek of being a supportive place where people can be real, and can follow Jesus and can struggle still at the same time. We know that following Jesus doesn't eliminate these things. And we also know, though, that these storms in our life that we might have isn't the final word. So let's think about some next steps this morning. How can you steward your mind or your body or your community? Just pick one of those areas that we talked about and think about how you could practice better mental health by stewarding your body in a different way, or your mind, or the community. And that community might be Sycamore Creek community, but it might also be in your workplace. So thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for giving us this time to talk about mental health in church.
What would Jesus say about connecting with us at Sycamore Creek? Even if you can only do one of these things this morning, fill out the connection card at sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect so we can get to know you better. First-time guests, when you fill out a connection card, you'll get a free book, You'll Get Through This by Max Lucado. After new information, it's time to put on our masks. The Ingham County Health Department is now recommending everyone mask up indoors, so let's keep each other safe by wearing our masks during indoor worship. You know you want to hang out with a pastor and talk spirituality at a pub. I mean, who wouldn't? Mark your calendar for the next Pastor Outside the Pub event with Pastor Tom, Monday, August 23rd from 7 to 9 p.m. at Buddy's in Holt. The South Lansing Art Festival returns October 3rd, 2021. Come experience the unique South Lansing Art Festival characterized by the local artists in all different mediums on October 3rd. Register now for Congregations Organizing for Racial Reconciliation Understanding Workshop, November 12th through 13th. Register now and save the date to come together and be a part of something bringing your community and your world closer together. Connect with us using Sycamore Creek's app. You can give through the app, listen to sermons online, and access your Bible all right from your phone. Simply type in SCCMI on any mobile device to find us on the app. Not interested in the app but still want to give online? Head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/give and you'll have options there too. Let's take it back to the studio to keep celebrating all the things that your giving makes possible.
Yes, so your giving makes it possible for things such as the Compassionate Closet, and so we want to take some time to celebrate that. I'm going to have Gretchen talk a little bit more about what's been happening with the Compassionate Closet.
Yeah, so I am also the office manager. I don't just get on here and talk to you guys on Sundays. And in the office, I received a letter from Shad Williams, who's the director of Compassion Closet, saying that our very own Shelley Mull has been bringing in items. We didn't even know she was doing this. So she did it in May and June, and that is such an awesome thing. And Compassion Closet gives toiletries to people who have needs like that. I mean, most places give away food, but there's other things that we need besides food in our homes. So that is so cool. Thank you so much, Shelley, for doing that, and thank you for your giving, which makes that happen.
Yes, thank you, Shelley. And so we have one more question for you. If you can put in answer this question: what is something that you want? I want fill in the blank. And as you're thinking about that, we have the player of music and DJ Juice for one last song. It's called I. So as you listen to them, answer the question in the chat, and here we go.
So before we get started, I just want to explain this a little bit. So this was probably, I want to say this is the first song that I wrote while in quarantine, and that's where like this this whole recent wave of what I've been doing has kind of spawned from. The title of it, that's the title of the lead song, and the whole project is called I, because it was pretty much about me and how I was feeling at the time, and all the different stages of emotions that I was going through while I was in that situation. And actually, the sample on this beat is singing of someone by the name of Shallow Dynasty, and that's also one of the icons for my generation. All of the remixes and like vocals that she laid down are used to help combat this mental health and kind of like resonate with it. So that's why I wanted to use that sample, and then DJ Juice, of course, flipped it beautifully, and here we are. Yeah. Customary mood, pose holding people over. Feeling wasted even though I'm always staying sober. Tired of overthinking cause the end is getting closer. And I'm always on the edge, got an overactive motor. I'm confused about the rules like I'm watching the Olympic curling. Thinking about my old home, got my head hurting. I'ma make it back into Cali and that's for certain. But for now we got Corona and all of it's just a burden, yeah. Gotta get my mind right before it's all gone. I feel like the way I'm doing things is all wrong. Even if there was a day where the pain's gone, I'll be writing songs today looking at my tombstone. Fame is a fool's gold, but I'm still chasing it. Flashing lights, long nights, feeling like you making it. I know it's a facade, but I'm never gonna take the hit. Don't gotta numb an agent, gotta find a way to live. Yeah. I miss the place where I come from is home. But I'll be headed back when I'm grown. I'll be overblown cause I'm not afraid of the snow. But when I go, I'll be back in the fold. Cause I know that even though I'm young, I also know I'm only getting older. Not so only getting colder. There's an angel and the devil on my shoulder. I don't know who I should listen to. All my thoughts are cloudy cause they speaking from two different views. Always coming up with ideas, so complacent. They're looking at my spot in the game and they not complacent. I don't know the cutoff, I'm feeling like I'm racing. When you work your butt off, but you don't never make it. Cause you're the one that's showing up, but someone else is blowing up. Workload is going up, my bank account is showing dust. I'm feeling like my mind is overrun. I hope it's worth it. I just want to make a statement when I'm done.
All right.
Yes. That's so cool.
That was poetry.
Thank you so much. I was over here, I was like, I felt like I wanted to just go, hey, hey.
Yes.
I should have just did it. Anyways, thank you so much to Player Music and DJ Juice for being here with us. This is the meme of the week. I want a hot body, but I also want barbecue. That is real.
It's real.
That is so real. So what are some of the things that you want, Julia?
You know, I went straight spiritual with this, but that is definitely, that's definitely real. I said peace. In all situations, I want peace.
I kind of went both directions. I was like, I want, to get my kids to listen. I want wonderful relationships. I want to be satisfied. But then I was like, I want to eat all the food I want without gaining weight.
Right.
That would be cool.
That would be a superpower.
I want a clean
right
house,
Right, 0-calorie burgers.
A house that cleans itself actually would be really cool.
That's a billionaire idea.
Yes.
Kristen, what people are saying in the chat?
We have one comment that's, I want a healthy breakfast, but I don't feel like making it.
Oh.
Same.
Man.
Oh. Every night at dinner, I'm like, man, I want to eat, but I don't want to make it.
I want a nap, to be honest.
Yes, yes. Sunday afternoon naps are the best.
A lot of people are saying peace, too. So
Yeah.
A little more spiritual than my need for a nap, I guess.
I think we all
Those
need
are
some
nice
peace.
things, too.
I think my answer would be I want a good, solid community, trusted friends that you can kind of continue to roll through life with. So, yeah. So here we go. Thank you so much for doing that. So next week is climate change. So tune in with us as we continue this series of what would Jesus say about climate change. And until then, continue to be curious, creative, and compassionate. Show that to your neighbors and your friends and your family. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.